YAML. So I'm going to go ahead and add that to the end of my URL. And this gives us back the YAML documentation for EMS Server. It's quite a lengthy document already with nothing installed in the server, and that's because it's providing all of the existing functionality of that server in the document. So I'm going to take this document link and take a copy and bring that over into Swagger UI. Now, place it in here, but when I click on Explore, it's going to fail to read that document. Actually, it hasn't failed, it succeeded. But if on your system it does happen to fail, the reason is often because we're not hosting the Swagger UI. So what I've done is I've installed an extension into my Chrome browser, and the extension is called Allow Control, Allow Origin. And that gives you this little icon button up here in the browser. If you find that when you try to explore your YAML document it doesn't work, then you can use this plugin to enable, or rather disable and re-enable cross-origin resource sharing. And the reason for this is that the domain, localhost, is not the same domain as index is coming from because of browsing from file. So the browser security kicks in and prevents you from reading the document. Okay, so having read that document, we can see here that we have all of the existing endpoints for the EMS server. So we've got our API documentation, any edge modules that we have installed, groups, users, push notifications, and so on. We'll drag this to one side for a moment, and we'll put some documentation tags into our code. Okay, so on our endpoint here, we have a get method, which returns all records of the employee database table, and we have a get item, which returns a single row. Now, we need to add some declarations to these, and I'm going to start by adding, I'm going to copy paste it, because these are kind of lengthy tags, but I'm going to add some declarations to the get method. We're using two tags here, endpoint request summary and endpoint response details. More information about these tags can be found on the documentation at Embarcadero's.wiki, and again, a link to this documentation will appear in the blog post for this session. So, let's look at what I'm putting in. Well, the endpoint request summary starts with this first parameter here, which is actually called the tag. All this means is, where is the endpoint with regards to the server? So, when I put the URL into my browser and I go localhost 8080, I do /employee, and that's why I'm putting employee in here as the tag. The next parameter here is a summary, so a brief description of what this endpoint function is going to do. So I'm putting in all records, saying this is going to return all records. We then get another descriptive entry here, so this is called description, and we can put a lengthier returns all employee records or something more with more detail. We then get this tag here for producers, and this is saying what does this endpoint, when I call it, what does it produce? Well, it's going to produce JSON text because we described JSON data coming out of DB select. Type, saying what type of data do we get when the request is made? Well, this is a GET request, and we don't have any parameters, so this isn't consuming anything. I'm going to leave that blank. It'll actually default to text type, but since there's no text coming in, it's not going to do anything. So that's describing the method. We then need to describe the response that this method will send back. Now, you could send back one of any number of different response codes. So HTTP has a number of well-defined response codes, one of which is 200. 200 means I made a request to the HTTP server and it came back successfully. So 200 is the OK code. So I'm just going to define for this method what happens if everything goes well. You could add in here response details for various error codes like 500 is a server error or for a 4-page or resource not found. But I'm just going to go ahead and put in the OK for this method right now. The next parameter of this tag is the data type that's going to be returned. Well, we're returning a JSON array, so I put in SP array. Now, I could choose from a number of different options here. I could send back a straight Boolean piece of data or an integer and so on, but in this case, I'm just sending back an array. So, the next primitive format is, if I'm sending back an array, I'm sending back an array of what? I mean, I could just be sending back an integer or a string. So I could choose integer or string or byte or one of the other types. But in this case, what I'm sending back is an array, and it's an array of objects. And because objects aren't actually defined as a primitive type, I'm telling it no. I'm not sending a primitive data type for the return, I'm resetting an object, which is the next parameter. So I'm going to send back an array of objects. But then I need to describe that object. And because this is a single line tag, I don't have anywhere to describe it. So what I'm going to do instead is put in this parameter, which is going to reference a description of an employee object. That means that we need to define the employee object. So I'm going to do a little bit of copy pasting here. I'm going to put a constant string which defines my employee object. I can put this anywhere in my code, but I'm just going to put it up here at the top for now. So I'm basically saying this is my employee object, and the properties of that object are, so I have an employee number, and the type of that property is integer. I have a first name, which is type string, and so on. So that's describing the objects that I'm sending back. But how do I link it to definitions employee objects? Well, for that I need another tag. So I'm going to go and get, so I'm calling these tags attributes. Forgive me for the correct terminology there. So this attribute is going to be the endpoint object YAML definitions. So I'm basically saying I'm going to add a definition into the document's definition section, and the definition that I'm adding is C-YAML employee. Well, that's my constant up here, defining employee object. So now my reference to the definition section, employee object, is complete. So this is the complete documentation for this one method, but unfortunately, if I try to run this module without completing the second method, the YAML document will be incomplete and the server won't start up. So I'm going to go ahead and copy paste in the parameters, or rather the attributes for the get item method as well. So again, we have a request endpoint summary. This time I'm sending an employee/item. Remember that item is extended to our URL, so I'm going to send in the item on the URL here. I'm giving this a very quick summary, get employee record, so I'm going to get a single record, and then the lengthier description returns employee record by number. I'm returning application JSON, and actually this parameter right here is not needed. I'm not consuming any data from the request body. Then we have the endpoint request parameter. So in this case I am sending the parameter up. So I'm saying this is a T parameter in, and it's on the path, as in that is on the URL to our endpoint. And the parameter name is item. A description for that, specify the employee number. I forget what the true parameter is. I'm just going to quickly look that up. True determines whether or not this parameter is required. Well, for this endpoint it is, so that's true. We have T printed type. Well, this parameter is a type string. That's what I'm accepting. Then we have the printed format. Now again, I'm putting in none, and the reason is we don't have a string in here. If I put in none, it's going to use the default formatting of string, so that's going to give me a string return type, a string parameter type. At this point, we need to give the item data type. Now, this is accepted, this parameter looks like it's being accepted twice. And in the case of simple string, it is. This parameter here is actually here for, as you've seen before, when we pass in an array, we can give the type of object within the array. So I'm just going to go ahead and pass in string. I believe I could pass in none at this point. Yes, not. So I'm just going to pass in string and do the same thing again. And then we're being asked for a schema for the parameter. Well, we're not passing in an object, so we don't need to give it a schema. And we're being asked for a reference to the definition of the object. Again, we're not passing an object, so we don't need to push that in. Okay, and then we come to endpoint response details, and we're doing the same again. We're giving a 200 OK response. We're returning an array. The array doesn't have a primitive format. This should be an object. And we're returning definitions employee object. And I don't need to reference employee object again because I've already referenced it here. So that's going to include that into the definitions section. So that's both of my methods documented. Let's go and see what that looks like when we explore it using Swagger. So I started up my EMS server with our module in it, and I opened the browser, and I don't really need to go through this PCM, but let's do it one more time. We'll go to API, API.YAML, gives us the YAML definition. And if I go and do a quick search in here for employee objects, we can see that we're referencing employee object here, and this actually is our employee endpoint get method. This is giving us the summary descriptions. You can see here that we're passing in 3 parameters. Now these aren't parameters that we set on the method. These are parameters that are sent in the headers by the EMS server. So we can safely ignore these 3 parameters. This method has no parameters going in as far as we're concerned. And then in the responses we've got our 200 OK, and we're referencing the employee object. If I take a look underneath that, we've got the employee object with an item parameter. And again, we're passing in these 3 header parameters as default for the EMS server. But then we're also passing in on the path, so on the URL here, item, which is to specify the employee number. It is required, and it's a string. And then in the responses, we can see again I'm referencing the employee object. So if I search that employee object one more time, and I'll show you the definition. Let me take a quick look down here. Okay, it appears it may be missing from our definition, so I'm going to take a quick look at the attributes that we put in here. And I tell you what I think needs to be done. I think I need to move this reference up here onto the class. So I'm going to go ahead and give that a try. Yes, so now I have 3 instances of this. This is my reference. And here is the object itself being pushed into our YAML documents under the definitions section. So that's how we can reference definitions employee object. So now that the document's looking correct, let's go grab it in Swagger UI. So I still have this document open. Let's go ahead and hit explore again to refresh it. And we can see now that we have an employee endpoint added to our document. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look inside the employee endpoint here. And I can see that we have one get method. We're going to take a look under the get method. We actually have an example of what a return record should look like from this method. We have 3 EMS header parameters which we can ignore, and we don't have to put any parameters in. You can see return all employee record being returned from the documentation, and so on. So if I go ahead and try this method now, we can see that it is returning all of the data from our endpoint. We've got a response code of 200, and that's our response data. Okay, so let's take a look at the second version, the itemized, and we have employee/item. So we can go take a look in here, returns employee record by employee number, and we can see that we have the 3 header browsers for EMS, plus our item which is required. And I'm going to look for item 5 again, I'm going to look for item 3 this time, so go ahead and hit try it out. And we can see I didn't get anything back, so there is no employee number 3. I guess I will try number 5. And here we can see we get Kim Lambert. We're taken to our custom endpoint. So what about our endpoints? Well, yesterday we created this EMS endpoint, which was the resource that we built yesterday for reading the joystick. We added a lot of runtime type information tags. These are used by the EMS servers to generate basic documentation in YAML for our pinpoint. So I'm going to go ahead and start up our pinpoint here. I have our EMS development server running in the background. So when we start this up, we're going to go ahead and register and activate this pinpoint. So this is now collecting data from our joystick and making it available to the EMS server. So to take a look again in our Swagger UI, I'm going to explore our API again, and I'm going to come under Edge Modules. And we have a get method for getting the Edge modules which are installed. So I'm going to go ahead and run this, and we can see our EMS pinpoint is installed. Okay, so how do we get the joystick data? Well, again, under Edge module, we have Edge modules resources, and we just check to make sure that under the EMS pinpoint we have a version, API, and most importantly, a joystick resource. So now if we close up the Edge module section and step into the Edge module invokers, we have a get method here which says get a value from the Edge module by module name and resource name. So let me go ahead and come in here, put in our EMS pinpoint module name and joystick, that's our resource name, and try it out. And you can see we've got 2 values come back, the X and Y axis of the joystick, as it currently stands. Let's go ahead and hold the axis of the joystick to one side, and we'll try it again and see the different values that we get here. Okay, great. So now we're able to read data from our joystick using a REST endpoint. Let's see how we might build an HTML page which can display the data from our joystick. Okay, so now we have a pinpoint working. Let's consume that pinpoint using a HTML or web page. So this is going to be some plain HTML and some JavaScript. Now a lot of web developers like to use additional frameworks such as AngularJS or maybe Node.js. But none of these are actually required. You can use any of them for your UI, of course, but I will show you that none of these are required. You can just use plain HTML. So to start with, I'm going to open up a new browser. And I'm just going to check that our endpoint is working. I have the EMS server, the pinpoint, and the management console running in the background. So if I go ahead and post in this URL, localhost 8080/edge modules, pinpoint joystick, we can see the X and Y axis data coming back. So it's a simple HTTP call. So I'm going to keep this browser open for a moment, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new directory in the subversion. So I'm going to create a new file. Now I'm going to be using Notepad++, just because this is a really great editor with some syntax highlighting. You can use any Notepad you choose for this, and I'm going to go ahead and pin that up to my screen. So I'm going to start by creating a new file. I'll say save as. And let's browse to the directory that I want to save this in. So in the subversion, you'll find it as a simple HTML client. And I'm going to name this index.html, so it's the front page of the website. Okay, so we use some basic HTML in here, so I'm going to put in an HTML tag. And type it correctly. And we need a head section. And we need a body section. Okay. So in the head section, I'm going to go ahead and put in a script tag because we need a little piece of JavaScript. And the script tag needs to be closed. So let's start by putting some content into the body. First thing I'm going to put in is just a hello message, and then I'm going to put in some paragraphs. So we'll have paragraph with an ID, and then we go for JSON, and close that paragraph off. Let's have another one, ID equals, let's have one for the X input, and close that off. And let's have another one for the Y input. Okay, and then I'm going to need some way to make the JavaScript execute. Now I could do that on a loaded document, but I think I'd rather put this onto a button so we have an event. So we'll have a button called type button. On click, we're going to have some JavaScript in there that's the moment obviously that's blank. So B and button. Okay, so we go ahead and save that file. So a very basic HTML file there with a couple of paragraph tags and a button. Let's open that up in our browser. And I click clicking, nothing happens. Okay, so we need to teach the script. Well, I'm going to start the script with a function, and let's call this user action. So I set the button, I'll call the user action. Okay, let's create a HTTP client. So I have a var HTTP equals new XML HTTP request. Going from memory, I think that's right. HTTP.open, and we're going to open a URL. I'm going to use the get method because we are calling our REST get method. And then I need to put our URL. Oops. So our URL for our endpoint in there. Okay. and then we'll use http.send to execute that call. Now when we get our results back, we need to display them somewhere. So what I'm going to do is use the DOM. I'm going to go for document.getElementByID, because we named some IDs here, and I'm going to pick out the JSON element there, and then I'm going to set the inner HTML to the XHTTP response text, so we should be able to see what gets sent back. Now in order for that method to be called, all we need to do is paste a call into the onState event. So we're now going to call the user action, which should go off and call our endpoint and come back with some data. Let's give that a try. I'll refresh my page over here and click me, and we didn't get anything back, so let me check why that might be. I'm missing a parameter here. And I'm actually missing get request header. So we'll set the request header to application JSON. Okay, try that again. And this time we get XML back. So we can see here that we have the x-axis parameter and the y-axis parameter from our joystick. So let's go ahead and put those into the x and y input boxes in our HTML. And we can do that just by manipulating the document a little further. So we'll start by getting a response as the JSON.parse, and we want to parse the XHTTP response text. So that's going to parse the text that we get back. And then we need to make use of that, so I'm going to go for document getElementByID in HTML again. This time we're going to be modifying the x input, and we're going to be setting that to the response.x-axis, because now we've parsed the JSON, we have an object with an x-axis property, and so we can do the same again with the y-axis. Like that. So let's go ahead and test this. And we get our x-axis, our y-axis as a JSON packet, and here are the values. So of course we could put some additional text descriptions around this. So let's put x-axis and y-axis, and we'll get rid of the JSON at this point. We don't need to see it, that was there for debug purposes. So let's take that out. And we should put the R in here. Okay, and we can populate our x-axis and our y-axis. So that's how we can call just using plain HTML and JavaScript. Let's take a look now at how we might call this from C#, for example. Okay, so I'm going to build a C# project using Visual Studio. This is Visual Studio 2015. And I'm just going to go ahead and start a new project. This is going to be a Visual C# Windows, and I'm going for a Windows Forms application here so we can see a form with our data on it. I'm going to name this Simple C# Client, and I'm saving it into the subfolder directory of the same name, so you can go find that in the source code repository. Okay, so the default project created has a main form, and we've got some components on here. A couple of labels, and I'll have a couple of edit boxes to return our values into, and they're called text box 1 and 2, and I'll have a button to execute the request. Okay, so let's go lay those components out. Let's make these a little longer actually, so they're going to contain some relatively long string values. And then labels 1 and 2. Okay, so label 1, I'm going to change the text on this to x-axis, and label 2 to y-axis, and then the button, I'm just going to put the word go on the button. Okay, so now we have the form. I'm going to create an event handler for the go button, which is going to go off and make our REST request. Now, I am by no means a C# expert. I'm actually quite new to C#, or rather, I've used it very little. So I'm going to be copy-pasting some code in here. And the first thing we need to do is include the using statements. This will be the equivalent of a user statement in Go-By. So I'm going to add in system.io, system.net, and system.web.script.serialization. So IO is for streams. We're going to use streams to collect data from the web services. .net is for those web services themselves. We need to be able to make web calls. And this system.web.script serialization is for the JSON deserializing that we're going to do on the JSON data. Now you can see that this library is not identified. We've got a little red line under it. And that's because we need to go out of reference under references. As of .net 4.5, I think, this reference is to system.web.extensions. Has a different name in older versions of the .NET framework. I think it may have been called system.web.scripts in older versions. But I'm going to need to go and add that into my projects. So now that I have that, this little error should go away when we try to build it. I just want to run now. Okay, so for the main event handler, I'm going to go ahead and copy paste code, as I said. And here it is. So we have the HTTP web request, which is just a web request component, and it is calling our localhost 8080, edge modules, pinpoint, joystick. We're going to make this a GET request, since we're calling the GET method again, and we're going to set the content type to application JSON. After doing this, we get a response class. So we call the request.getResponse to instantiate the response class, and then I'm creating a stream here, which is going to read the response data as a stream, and it will store that data into this string value here, this response string. Then I'm using a JSON serializer to deserialize, so I'm calling the .deserialize method, to deserialize the contents of the response string, and this is going to lead to a